When I was in kindergarten, I remember a magician coming and showing several tricks, and this is one of them, and he even had it for sale. This is the fortune teller miracle fish. And so the idea is that you put this fish that's enclosed in here on your hand, and based on the way it moves, it indicates, well, if it's your fortune, this is how you're going to feel in the future. So if its head moves, that means you're going to be jealous in the future. Moving tail, you're going to be indifferent in the future, so on and so forth. I remember as a kid, my brother putting it on my hand, and it didn't move at all, and so they all thought it was funny because I was a dead one. Anyways, I saw one of these for sale at my local toy store and was pretty excited to pick one up and experiment with it. And just over the recording of this video, this is like the 5th take or something along those lines, I've learned more just trying to record and experiment with this thing. I'd ask students what might cause this to act the way it does, and I got a couple theories, and so we tested them out then, and I'll test them out now for you. But first, let's just do a quick demonstration. I'm going to pull the fish out. I'm going to set it on my hand, and we're just going to let it wait. We're going to wait. Do we have any motion? Anything? It looks like that old head's starting to pop up. There we go, yeah. So that head's starting to pop up. I don't want to experiment too long with it. So that head's popping up, and that indicates that I'm going to be jealous in the future, apparently. One theory that a student had was that it might be heat. So I'm going to put this on this heated bed here. And, right, so that's not a bad theory, right? There's these things called bimetallic strips that we use in electrical devices that they pop apart as the metals increase, and that breaks a contact or makes a contact. And honestly, I do see a little bit of curling here. It might be too close to the experiment that we just did on my hand. That's something to consider. Or I might not have my temperature at a reasonable spot. But I do see some curling. I didn't always see curling here, but in this experiment, I am seeing curling. Oh, a pretty major curl there now. And so, in an earlier recording of this, I'd said, okay, well, heat doesn't really have anything to do with it. But we see here that heat is certainly having something to do. This is also the reason why 3D prints can pop off their bed prematurely, is because as the plastic cools and it will expand and contract, and it can cause things to pop apart. And so we actually kind of seen that there. The theory that I had was that we could use static electricity to move it, right? It was a static charge in our hands. So if I take this ball and my wool coat here and build up a charge, and I can hear some nice little snaps. And if I take my fish and I bring it close, well, I can already see it's wanting to like go right toward it. If I flip it around the other way, I can still see it's bending right toward it. So, and if I let go, it's just going to stick right to it. So you can see that this guy is, and as I look at this little tail's moving, can you see that on the camera? Yeah, so static electricity definitely does have an effect on this fish. Oh, I just went down. It does have an effect, and I thought that was the answer. And then, right, so right, I had assumed, excuse me, that it was this effect, right? That if we have two strips of the same material and we apply charge to both strips, we know that like charges like to repel one another. And so if they want to repel one another, right, we're going to get some actual macro motion here where these two strips are going to go away from one another. this is the principle on, I believe it's an electroscope, where you can have like 2 strips of gold foil or aluminum foil even, and you build up a charge and cause that to happen. So the idea is that when that fish touches my hand, it gets some charges built up on its face or different contact areas, and I also have some positive charges on my hand that causes this to eventually move away. And I was like, that's it. That's the thing. And then I did a little literature review just to make sure that I wasn't just making stuff up, because my little teeny experiment had demonstrated that, yes, charges cause us to move. And my literature had reviewed that it was nothing to do with the static, nothing to do with the temperature, but it was actually due to the material that it was made out of. It was sodium polyacrylate, I believe is the material. And I found a link on that, and I read it, and it was pretty convincing. And so let's try that out real quick. What's key about the sodium polyacrylate is that, well, where'd the fish go? It's right here. So if I put this on my hand, we're going to see a little bit of movement, whatever, nothing super fancy. If I get my hand wet, I got my finger wet here, and I'm gonna kind of spread some moisture out on this part of my hand, and then I'm gonna touch the head to that spot there. I'm gonna let it pick up that, and look at that, was like a severe folding over. Whoa. So it appears to be, it's actually the moisture, right? You can see it folding further and further, and it's just causing the bonds in these polymer chains to kind of want to change their angle a little bit. And so that was kind of my conclusion there, is like, oh, it must be the water. But then I had to take another step back and wonder, is it just the water? Or perhaps it really is a combination of all 3 of these things, right? Because, right, we are changing the shape of the molecule based on the water, causing it to attract and repel and things along those lines. And the charge is also building up on this film, because I do know I can kind of remove some of that charge effect if I touch this to ground or like the side of an outlet. And the heat also does cause it to curl up a little bit. And so the literature review I did was nice, going on Google and finding a source that was really useful, because I hadn't really even thought about the water. So that has an effect. The heat has a small effect, and the static has a small effect. And so I don't think that there's one answer to this question on what causes it to move, right? I really think that the water is the biggest effect, but I think it's an interplay of all these effects that cause our fish to tell a fortune.